Thanks for watching Instant Reaction. For full episodes of the Cannon Podcast, sign up as a YouTube member on this channel or go to patreon.com/thecannonpod. Welcome back to the Instant Reaction. Arsenal 0, Bayern 1 at the Allianz Arena. Arsenal are out of the Champions League at the quarterfinal stage. An incredibly disappointing night. I have a lot to say. But yeah, we'll start with first. Do you, mate? First thoughts. We'll go to you first, George. Just overall feelings right now.
I think that it was a night where it was definitely on a knife edge. The players felt that way. The difficulty is I just feel like we weren't brave enough in our general play. And I think across this tie, we didn't really see the Arsenal of the season, which is more what I'm upset about, because the first leg is probably characterized by a really good comeback story, but defensive moments that we haven't seen. And I think on the goal that we can see today, it's really poor man marking by Martinelli, where I feel as though that's not been a weakness for Arsenal all season. And I think that we haven't taken the strengths that we've come into the tie with. And we've played a very nerve-wracking tie. I think it was a pretty competitive match, generally speaking. I still don't think that we were we took our moments when we were on top. There was definitely a period kind of in the first half that I think we were definitely on top and we didn't really make use of it. We weren't shooting, we were getting into positions, but people were too afraid of making the right decision as opposed to taking a chance and taking a moment. And it was frustrating from that aspect. And I still think that some of the changes that we saw were good. They were good changes in terms of Tomiyasu. I thought did a brilliant job on Sane. And I thought I'm doing my post-match tweet and I'm highlighting defenders. And that's part of the problem in a tie where it's tied and you do need to start to take the impetus forward. And so I'm left frustrated. I'm left really angry trying to control your emotions. I think we've lost in another batch at the end of the season, which is really frustrating. I think that that's the one thing that I've seen in Mikel Arteta's tenure that I really don't like, where when we lose, we seem to lose in batches and we're not able to stem the bleeding and, in a sense, try to compose ourselves and try to approach the same game. And that's really been the biggest frustration that I've kind of taken away from the tie, generally speaking, and that we definitely need a transitional threat. It's been really clear. The times that we've been scuppered really this entire tie have been through transition moments, and you can see the power that it holds, no matter about you keeping it tight and no matter about how us approaching the game in the right way where we're competitive. Ultimately, we need to find that key transitional attacker, and I don't see one. I'm left looking at the bench and I'm thinking, okay, we've got Eddie Nketiah, we've got Reece Nelson, potentially Jesus. There's not enough people that I think strike fear into the heart of kind of opposition in these moments when you're looking to change a game, when you're looking to change the narrative of a game. And I don't think we have enough of those in attack. And so I think we learn from it. A lot of the mistakes, again, are kind of almost youthful mistakes in a sense. But I'm left really annoyed at some of the experience because I feel like some of the experience has really let me down in this tie, generally speaking. But yeah, frustrated because I felt like this team had the potential to do a lot better. And I just don't think that we were brave enough on the ball.
Yep. We'll get into a lot of the more specific stuff there. I think my main feeling is, obviously just a massive disappointment right now. Just really disappointed that it feels like the season falls down at the same sort of point every year. And we think things have changed, but they haven't. My more rational side says that, you fall down, 99% of teams fall down at this stage of the season because, that's what happens. But it feels specifically, with Arsenal that we know, almost more frustrating that we know we can do it almost, that, we feel like we are the team that can perform on these levels. And we haven't shown that this evening. We didn't show that enough over the two legs. Yeah, Bhavs, overall thoughts?
I don't really have many. Look, I think a lot of the second half was just deflation, not being able to lay a glove. It's like, well, you've got the players and you've got the ability, so where is it gone? Right? It's that feeling of every time Bayern had the ball in attack with Sané or Musiala, you're like, something's gonna happen. They're gonna cause something. I feel like with our attackers, that wasn't the case. Whether it's Odegaard or Saka or Martinelli, it's like they were playing with a handbrake. They were scared to take their man on. They were scared to make something happen. And a lot of it was just passing around the back. And look, at the start of the game, I understand that you're trying to, see out the early pressure and keep it nice and composed. But once it goes 1-0, you have to go for it. And I think that's where a majority of Arsenal fans will be annoyed today. It's not the fact that we lost the game or we've got knocked out of Bayern because it's a tough ground to go to. It's the fact that after 1-0, there was not even a single sniff, and Bayern aren't amazing defensively. They've got Eric Dyer there, for example. They're not winning the Bundesliga either. So they're there to be get at. And it feels like the Arsenal players just were playing with a handbrake, and there was a lot of fear and a lot of the moment itself. And it's annoying because we saw that first leg at the Emirates in the first 15-20 minutes that you can break them down if you go at them. But it was not even an effort. It was all, we'll wait for an opportunity, wait for the perfect pass. And I think, Alex mentioned in the last few podcasts that we don't have a moments player because, if you look at a Man City in that moment, if you look at a Liverpool or even a Real Madrid, they find someone to do something that's a bit different. It's not
Look
always
what happened.
tactical.
Kevin De Bruyne in the other game.
It's not Gvardiol might bang it from somewhere. It's not always tactical. It's not always everything's manufactured from the manager. It has to be on the pitch, feel what's happening. You look at how Kimmich played today. Kimmich was feeling the game the whole time, trying to push some players, Arsenal players out, bring out a position. And I wanted to see more from Arsenal going forwards. And I think that's why so many Arsenal fans are angry right now. The game against Villa, you could see that, okay, we got caught out and you're tired, whatever. But this is the second leg. Just go for it. Give us a sense that something might happen. And the stat, 10 minutes to go, I was deflated. I was like, we're not going to score because it doesn't feel like we're going to score. It doesn't feel like we're going to make a chance. And that can't happen.
I was later than me, mate. I was 25 minutes. I was going, this isn't happening. Mafio, thank you for your contribution. Why can't this team get it done ever? Yeah. Benny, thank you so much for your contribution. It's the levels. You can clearly see the difference in quality. We could have played 200 minutes and we still would not have scored. And Wayne Jenkins, Benny, thank you so much for your contribution. And Wayne, thank you so much as well. Arteta's obsessed with trying to win 1-0 very hard. Something that's on my mind, maybe this is, not the right angle to take, but we could start here is, I think I mentioned it on our last podcast. There was an Athletic article that came out talking about what was impressive about Arsenal this season. And it was a really good article. And all the analysts and coaches of other Premier League teams are saying the reason Arsenal are so good is, yes, they have good tactical ideas, but they move the ball quickly. They get men in front of the ball. They get men behind the ball. That you never have any time on the ball. They're committed to the manager's philosophy. They are, in essence, running harder. And I feel, maybe Bhavs will come back to you on this. I feel again, physically, it's not the whole picture, but it's a part of the picture that we've run out of gas. I think it was kind of slightly summed up by that moment with Saka with the corner. Can't even hit the first man. And it just looked like a sort of weak, limp sort of stutter of a corner from someone who isn't physically locked in, but understandably, because we were there last summer thinking, okay, we're signing Timber and Havertz and these guys and whatever to be part of our first 16-17, but we've ended up again with what feels like over the course of the season a first 13-14. Who do we really trust outside of the guys that started tonight? Kivior, Jesus, and Trossard. It feels like we've lost trust in Zinchenko. Feels like we don't trust Eddie. We don't trust, certainly Arteta isn't showing us he trusts Fabio Vieira. He isn't sure, so we might like the players. But have we ended up with another situation where we're going?
Can I ask a different question though? Because we talk about us, at what point we need to have probably an honest conversation about Mikel not doing this part of management. Because it's been multiple seasons in a row where I feel that he hasn't effectively managed the squad, whether or not we want to doubt the quality. And let's assume they're not good enough.
No. I'm not. George. I'm not doubting the quality. I'm not saying that. My angle was the Arteta angle, because I know you believe in these players. I know you do. I'm not coming for the players. My angle was the Arteta thing. And that was what I was going to ask. Is that I'm frustrated at what Mikel has done again, is created a smaller and smaller group every single season. It feels like every season we go from 15-16 who we believe in to 11 to 15-16 back down to 12 to 15-16 back down to again 13-14. And I think it's a problem. It's a concern.
Well, part of the frustration where I'm going with is I don't even think it's just a matter of that management part, but it seems as though he decides when to trust players and when not to trust players. That's been my biggest frustration, because you can't go in and out of trust so infrequently. And, I think as a whole, some of the players that he places more trust in have continued. It's not equitable. Like, if we're going to be honest about some of the mistakes and some of the decision making, like, I think let's have a conversation, for example, about Jorginho. We're on the bounce. We've had now multiple weeks of Jorginho playing, and I've seen the same mistakes in possession. I've seen the same issues with Jorginho, but we're keeping faith in it because of experience. But if you're going to be equitable, then that needs to be a change in the squad, and we don't see it. For example, there's players that I think we can definitely use better and use more, that we continue not to. And for whatever reason, whether it's assumed through character, through training, or through quality, either of those metrics, at some point, if you're going to turn to these same players that you believe aren't good enough, for example, Eddie in the 85th minute, when have you provided Eddie with any minutes, who has been taken out of the cold effectively after a good start? Like, I don't mind the sub to try to change something different. It's all that you have at this moment. But you can't sit there and expect somebody to go from cold to winning you a moment in a Champions League quarterfinal with 5-10 minutes left. That's where the frustration for me lies. And I think the biggest frustration is I feel like our manager is very self-reflective, and he does it after the fact, but he's incredibly slow to make changes that he will eventually make. And I think he needs to be braver. I look at not just the players, the manager, and the team needs to be braver with decisions. And I think regardless of where you stand on the quality aspect of the squad in general, the frustrating part is it is reaching the point after 3-4 years that Mikel is making those decisions. So whether it's good or not and they're staying, at some point you have to start saying, okay, but mate, like, you're offering an extra contract, for example, and you're not using the player in terms of Reece Nelson. You're continuing, which is fine. If you don't believe in the quality, then no problem. But then sell and try to invest it in somebody that you believe in. That's something that we're not quite seeing. And I think that also we're seeing a team that, to be quite frank, I'm really tired of seeing the same individual mistakes. How many top teams, no matter what happens, do you see us give away some of the goals that we've given away in this tie? And it's not Champions League heritage. One of my biggest things that I keep fighting in group chats is people are talking about how there's Champions League heritage that's involved here. I'm sorry, but some of the marking, Martinelli's man marking at any level is catastrophic. It's really poor. He goes with Kimmich and then stops his run. He doesn't even contest for it. That's basics. You can't be now at this stage of the so-called process and the rebuild be falling to mistakes of the basics. There has to be a different standard at this point. And I just don't see Arsenal give away the number of individual goals that we give away. I don't see amongst top teams. I don't see the amount of individual errors that we do. And that is what I think is very frustrating. And so it points to the maturity maybe in the squad. It's extremely young. It's a young team. They're gonna have these moments. But then I want us to recruit experience that can get us through, that we can rely upon, because for far too long, we haven't seen enough experience step through and step up, because we need it in these moments. And we need people brave enough when the tide aren't going to consistently try to play their game. And I don't think I saw that enough in tough moments. Like, look back at Fulham, look back at this game. I find it unacceptable that we as fans feel that after 25 minutes, we can't change a game. And it's a feeling. It's not a consistency, but it's a feeling that when the team goes down, I would say a large portion of the fan base feel that we're not going to get into this. We're not going to make a moment. And that is something that we need. We need somebody that can bring moments.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's just frustrating.
I agree. And I think the frustrating part is Martinelli, making that mistake. It's not like we can go, okay, well then let's just go sit him down against Wolves. It doesn't feel like an option. So, it's concerning. Mohamed Basha, thank you for your contribution. That was Men versus Boys, players and coach, by the way. Bhavs, one for you from Rin. Thank you for your contribution. What happened to our set pieces?
I think going forwards, I wouldn't say we've been caught out. We didn't have that many. I think we had three or four in total, and most of them came after the 80th minute. I think we just lost a bit of composure. I mean, the one that annoys you the most is actually the free kick that Saka has at the end. And if it works out, it's amazing. But he plays that past to Ben White, and it kind of wastes it. And then a corner. It's an awful corner, and I think I think what's happened is the players have become a bit complacent, not just in terms of like the people in the box, but more the takers themselves, mainly on Saka's side, and it's been a bit annoying. But it's just deflating right now. Thinking of because looking at Bayern today, I wasn't sitting there going, even the way they played, like, oh, these guys are miles better than us. We can't compete with these guys. We don't deserve to be here. It's like, no, we are here. We deserve to be here. These guys aren't amazing either. We're not doing anything, and it was very much reminding me of the performance against Fulham, where you just feel deflated because you're like, this team's not doing anything. It's not trying to make something happen. And you can't see any ideas. You can't see the vision. And that's why I think a lot of fans feel a bit lost right now.
Yep. We can bring up the beautiful podcast saving numbers from Scott Willis. Here we are. So we had 1 goal to 0 goals, in case you missed that. Bayern 1.3 expected goals to 0.7. Bayern with 15 shots to our 9. 3 shots on target each. They just edged the possession. But, lads, we did but not field tilt. So,
surprisingly,
we take those.
Does it count as a goal? Like, are they going to review that after the game?
I think that's in our UEFA coefficient. Yeah,
maybe there's actually.
I think
it helps the coefficient.
I'm pretty sure now Aston Villa, if they finish 6th, they get the Champions League. So
yeah. Okay.
Yeah. It's based on Arsenal's field.
We shouldn't take that rule away.
Yeah, maybe we should. Yeah, stop it, Uncle Unai. Nathan Piper, agree. Possession play and heavy passing is rife in this team on our bad days. Good struggle tonight and looking forward to Arteta's transfer window. Yeah, I mean, look, let's talk a little bit more about the game before we can sort of go big picture. I felt as though first half there was some nice moments. I thought we were growing into the game. There was a sort of period of the game, that sort of first 5-10 minutes where we had a lot of the ball and just couldn't find any access, and then it felt as though we were sort of picking up in the press and forcing them into errors. What changed in that second half? Maybe Bhavs, I'll come to you first. What do you think changed that gave Bayern their sort of control? I
think Bayern are always going to make a chance. Bayern, I think, going into this, had the highest XG in all of Europe. They have very good chance creation side. At home especially, they're going to make an opportunity. And I think when that came, I think the Arsenal players became a bit more nervous and almost tried to defend a bit too much, tried to rely on too much. Okay, we'll sit back and we'll try to see this out. And I think in a tie like that, the beauty of the Champions League is you can sucker punch teams. So we saw it in the last 2 nights, the night before where you saw the 2 games, and it's like we weren't given Bayern the thought of, okay, we can catch you in the counter attack. So they came onto us even more and more, and there was not even a thought that Arsenal could get back at them and give them a sucker punch. And I think the issue for Arsenal was there were spaces there, we didn't exploit them, and then once Bayern scored, then I think the time was basically over because they just saw the game up comfortably. And it was like the first leg as well in the second half where we had so much of the possession but not many chances. And apart from a bit of individual brilliance from Gabriel Jesus in that first leg, it would have ended Bayern 2, Arsenal 1. So I think a lot of that second half came down to fear, massive fear of conceding, and after conceding, fear of actually conceding another and seeing the tie go out. It almost felt like there was Arsenal were playing like there's a second leg coming up. This was the second leg. This is the last chance. You got to go for it. And if you lose this game 2-0, it is what it is, and you've gone for it. But I think, that was the issue was more fear and the occasion than anything.
George, I felt the spaces were out wide. Personally, I didn't feel we used the wide spaces enough, especially with White on the overlap in the first half. I think we did a little bit better in the second half. But yeah, where did you see the game sort of from a tactical perspective falling down in the second half?
I felt as though that we weren't sharp enough between the lines and we weren't brave enough in our first phase buildup. Far too much. Gabriel, which is really surprising. He is normally, of the 2 center backs, more willing to be playing forward or play between the lines. And I just felt that our play and buildup was very, it was poor. I mean, I think there was one moment in the second half that Jorginho does a nice ball over the top to Havertz, who does a miscontrol, but the idea was good. That ball over the top was good, and we just didn't do that enough. And, I think while space could have been wide, I mean, the moments that we released Saka, it was great, but that was the moments that we were decisive on the inside channels between the lines, and we didn't do that enough. And I think that the frustrating part to me was from the first minute, so not the first minute, but the first 10 minutes, Saka takes on Mazraoui and burns him easily. Yep. That happened once all match. And I'm sitting there saying, I don't understand. I can see Saka getting frustrated because I didn't think we switched to the right side enough. It was almost as though we knew that we were so clumped up on the right-hand side from our last game. We needed to be more balanced to the left, and we started building to the left, but then we ignored the right completely. And, it's frustrating because I think Saka was going to be our most dangerous player on the night. And we just, fundamentally, I don't think that we platform our superstars well enough, especially in these bigger games. I understand being pragmatic and wanting to be conservative at moments, but you need to be brave enough to play the pass and not be afraid about what's going to happen. There's far too much of that in the final third, and it leads to indecision. And it leads to this kind of robotic nature that I think people are bemoaning generally. And so from a tactical perspective, I still maintain that the play into the kind of the eights was the issue. I felt like we were going around them still, once again. And I feel like there wasn't enough onus on those eights to come deep and to pick up the ball and try to create something a la Musiala. And, ultimately, I don't think Bayern, by the way, had these incredible outlets that were tearing us apart. I think they had their moment in the beginning of the second half that had a really good chance. But even on the goal, mate, like, it's such poor defending. I can't honestly sit there and tell you that's a tactical mismatch. That's just really poor on Martinelli. Unfortunately, I don't want to kill the player, but it's just so poor from his perspective. And I just don't think that we did enough. Gabriel Martinelli, I think on the night, could have been a little bit more decisive in the final third. There's a moment he does a brilliant dribble. Just open up your shot. The cross inside at the top of the box, it's straight at Neuer. Like, those are the moments. And I think that we're talking about a very different game when you have those moments. But when we're so indecisive, I think that it leads to very predictable movement. And I think we need to start embracing the maverick, embracing the creativity and the freedom that it just seems like, whether that's a tactical instruction or on the players, I still feel like we don't do that enough. And it must come from somewhere, mate. Like, I can't think that Martinelli naturally, who isn't like that, stops doing that.
Yeah.
He's somebody that is naturally initiative like that, but we don't see it. And, Trossard, even, we put him on the bench, like, we put him on the field, and he's one of the better ball strikers in the squad, and yet we're still having him recycle. Like, come on, mate. Like, if you want that, then put on Reece Nelson. Like, get the boy inside and have him do something inside. But we're not able to do that.
Yeah, we'll come to the individuals in just a second. Ronnie, a Spurs fan in the chat. How was your Champions League quarterfinal? How did that go between Spurs and who was it between? Oh, fucking no one. Mafio, you guys give them far too many excuses. These guys lack character when it matters. Look, it's a game of fine margins, and what frustrates me is I'm not saying this is what you're saying, Mafia, but what frustrates me in the UK coverage is immediately it's a lack of experience. Bayern just find a way to win. That's not the story of the game. That's not the story of the game. I'm sorry. Maybe it plays a 0.3% chance. It's a tiny aspect of this. Analyze the game itself for me. Like, the game itself was where we fell down. I felt, in terms of adventure in the pass, in terms of the things George was just talking about, in terms of the physical aspect, in terms of how Bayern shut us down on the right-hand side. It's a number of things. And I think we then overlay lack of experience or lack of characters or lack of leaders and stuff. And it's, to me, we're going too far down the Roy Keane side. One moment, if Martinelli tracks his man, we could be having a completely different conversation. So who knows?
Well, can I actually ask you guys, and I'm sure actually we should do the super chat, but the one thing that I wanted to frame was, okay, we've got these difficult moments. Who in our squad do you believe has the freedom to do something that they're not asked?
Yeah.
And is that a problem?
It is, and it is a problem. It's the moment stuff that we're talking about. I don't think anyone. I was listening to a podcast earlier with do you know Harry Brooks, who's talking about it from an academy perspective, and he was saying players these days are just taught: you have the ball, you've got 4 options. That's it. You pass to him, you pass to him, you pass to him, or you do that. And I think that's the football. Arteta has got so much control at this football club. Who in that dressing room can say to him, actually, I'm not gonna follow your instructions just a couple of times this match? Who is there? Let alone the actual ability to pull it off. Someone who can, stand up to him. And Arteta, he is brilliant, and I love him, and I think he's a brilliant manager. I think he will lead us to silverware. But one thing I think he really needs to do with this team now, especially moving forward into the summer, is take the shackles off a little bit, allow players to express themselves a little bit, and put people in situations where you're saying, I actually don't have the answer for you. You tell me the answer in the final third. You show me the talent you have. And yeah, when we can do that, we'll be somewhere. Vijay, thank you so much for your contribution. This control match is leading to slow transitions. The sheer number of times I see we're encountering they slow it down. I'm so flattened by this. And am I alone in thinking with Xhaka we will go through? Well, Bhavs, you made that point about Xhaka on our last pod, I think.
Yeah, look, it is what it is. You can't think too much about the past. Got to look to the future now. And I think in terms of the transition itself, I think in this game specifically, it was a lot of fear of what Bayern could do, and it's because we are a very good defensive side, but the amount of times they could just break you with quality. Musiala dribble out of nowhere, or a little flick from Harry Kane. It's like you can't really prepare for those type of things. They just able to do those, and I think that's why a lot of our play was a bit fearful. If we try something and we give the ball away, these guys will punish us, and I think that's mainly from the first leg, where they started the game in such control. You're like, oh wow, we're actually beating Bayern in with the better team, and then bang, two moments of magic out of nowhere. So I think a lot of it was just fear of Bayern themselves and more the characters than anything. But obviously the quality is there, and I just want that Musiala type, that player, like even Sané, that player that you give the ball to and you're going, something's gonna happen.
Yeah,
he can do something out of nothing. He can
and
go
you don't know what's gonna happen.
You don't know, and if I don't know, how are they gonna know?
Yeah.
And that's what it is. I know exactly what happens when Saka gets the ball. He's going to cut inside, play 1-2. Know what Martinez is going to do. Right now, everything's too predictable, and that's as fans. So best believe the managers that are paid millions and millions of pounds to prepare for those type of games know exactly what's going to happen. So we go back to the attack and what do we need in the summer, and I think that will be the main thing of who's going to be our moments player and who's the player we can go and sign. Who can provide that moment of magic. Look, our greatest team of all time had a player in Thierry Henry that could do something out of nothing, and we don't have someone like that in terms of just a ball carrier in this team. I don't feel like, at least the only player you see at times do it is Gabriel Jesus, and if you look into the market, I think a player that Arsenal fans are looking at is Isak. So someone like that just to do something that I'm like, wow, okay, something's gonna happen now. Give him the ball. He will give them fear. I don't think Bayern watched the game today and their fans were like, oh, I'm scared of this player, because none of the players really gave anything to be fearful about.
Yep, very good team, but yeah, I think what Vijay says about the transitions and slowing it down, we need to find that player in the market, possibly. Before we come to some sort of individual player analysis, thank you, Oluwasein. Maybe I'm being reactive, but it feels like it's been compounding. 21-22, where we don't make top four, then we lose to SCP 22-23, and we collapse. Feels like we will always be an almost team. Yeah, look, in football, one team usually, certainly in a league, but across the season, you might get three happy fan bases, with a trophy. But even the ones who don't win the big stuff are still saying, yeah, it's a Carabao Cup, yeah, it's an FA Cup. Very few fan bases walk away and say they were the ones who got there. And very few teams are the ones who say you got there. That's the beauty of the sport. So feeling like it's not, we either get there or we don't, and it's a 50-50 choice. This is a 99th percentile thing to get there. So, I get that it feels that way. I think the thing that frustrates me more than anything is it feels like similar things are happening at the same time in terms of the physical burnout. That's the concern to me, because I actually don't worry about us in terms of technically, tactically. I don't worry about us quality-wise in many aspects. I think we could have won that game quality-wise. I'd like more quality, but I think we could have won that game quality-wise. It's the way we do it that frustrates me, and the way we become that we don't get that 99th percentile. DOF, finally, need game breakers in attack. That's it, absolutely. Bhavs, we haven't got loads of time, so maybe let's pick one player out each. Anyone you want to talk about?
Let's talk about Declan Rice. I think he's getting a bit of heat right now on social media because I don't know why. I don't think he really have a poor performance, and I can see what he was trying to do. I feel like in a game like this, you could see that why he didn't start as a 6 because of the experience of Jorginho, but at the same time, his profile is more suited against Musiala. I think he was perfectly fine. I think if I could pick on one more player, it's Martin Odegaard. I think if we talk about game breakers and players that can provide magic, the only player that's done it recently is Odegaard. And in games of Champions League against Porto, where he kind of cuts back and plays a lovely pass through, and even the game against Aston Villa. So I think those two players there can hold their heads up high, and then the rest, can break down for sure.
George?
Saliba, actually, I thought was really good. And it was nice to see because I feel like he stuttered in kind of previous rounds of the Champions League, both in Porto and as well as the first leg at Bayern. I thought he was really poor, and I think he stepped up, and I thought he was really, really good in this match. I think he was the only one that for me was looking to be brave on the ball, at least in deep build-up, and he was demanding the ball, and he got himself on it in the first half. A big reason why we performed so well in the first half was for me because of the impetus that Saliba showed, at least in possession. So I thought he was somebody that stood tall today in the back line. And maybe side note, Ben White, he's so composed. And there's even a moment in the first half where he is able to kind of loft a ball over a defender. And, the shot isn't great, but he for me, when the ball goes to both of those two players, I was calm. When the ball was going out to Tomiyasu and Gabriel, I felt like, come on, then do something. Yeah. And, I just feel like that side, which is partly why I'm so frustrated, was incisive. And we didn't get it to the right. It was the weirdest thing. I don't have any stats, and I'd love to see the pass map and how many attacks we went through each side. But I didn't feel from the eye test that we went through the right-hand side enough. And there was definitely a bigger balance. And the build-up, at least on the left, it wasn't leading to anything. Like, we just had possession for possession's sake on the left. And I just felt like we didn't use the right enough.
I think it was partly because Bayern used our left so much that most of these sort of the transitions would have started on that side as well. There's a Bayern Munich versus Arsenal open play final third passes targeting that left hand side. I want to mention Ødegaard because I think on another night, say we do, say Martinelli squeezes that ball in that chance in the first half, we're talking about a really, really good, another good Ødegaard performance in a row. I think there's been some question marks about Ødegaard in terms of, does he step up in the big games? I think he's completely silenced those questions. He's got areas to improve on, but I think there's always been questions about him as a kind of a big game player. And I think we have to, as frustrating as it is to look at the scoreline on an individual basis, I actually thought Ødegaard was pretty good and was one of our only players sort of physically fighting towards the end. Let's come to some questions before we finish off. Any questions that you guys have or topic suggestions or things you want to say, please get them in the comments. Really appreciate all the super chats so far this evening. As horrible as it is doing these instant reactions, they are quite good therapy, so really appreciate you guys being here. Horrible after losses, to be clear. So yeah, appreciate you guys being here and helping us with our therapy. Bhavs, how are you feeling? You look sad.
I'm watching the City game, by the way. It's gone to penalties.
It's gone to penalties?
Yeah, penalties.
There you go. Milo Haynes says, will this summer be pivotal if we want to compete next season? In my opinion, we need the players who are available and who are trusted by Arteta so that we can have the rotation to keep the physical levels. I mean, yeah, but every summer is pivotal. And this is my frustration this evening, is that it feels like the last two summers, have been the sort of the summer where we get that first 16, 17 who we trust. And we end up every single season feeling like we don't trust that many players in the squad, and that has to be put down to Arteta. So I don't know. Also, the levels I think have improved in the team. So there's certain players who drop off when that happens. Maybe Nketiah in 2022 was part of that first 16. He certainly isn't now. So I understand that, but something has to be put down to Arteta.
You know what's funny? I feel like in moments when you're really disappointed and you're on a low like this, people suggest drastic change when really the change for us to go to top isn't that drastic. No, it's probably the most important step, but the quality about what you need isn't that big. I think the biggest thing that I'm looking at in terms of pivotal parts is selling effectively in the squad, and that includes Mikel, but also Edu. Like, I think we need to get much better about making value of our invaluable assets. And, by moving on, it's not just taking the decision to do it, but I think we need to raise value that way. And, when we're looking at what's pivotal in the summer, I need to see at least a couple things addressed, where the idea that Ben White and Saliba can go another season where we're relying on these two, our most important players, not to falter is ridiculous.
Ben White's hamstrings are holding our dreams together.
Yeah, mate, like it's not right. And it's not right that we have to sit there worried about these two constantly, in my opinion. And, for as much as I want change in the left back position, because that's been changed the most, we have players there. I'm really looking and I'm saying, dear God, what's going to happen to the defensive cover? with another central center back, with another versatile defender there? What's going to happen in attack? That's the main thing, though. No one wants to hear about defenders, and I want to see Mikel, and I would like to demand this, the club, prioritize the attack. The issues have been, for quite a while, not in terms of scoring goals, but inevitable transition moments. I think people confuse this because, when we talk about we need moments or whatnot, it's about talking about how much gravity somebody shows in the offensive line. And I think you can achieve that in so many different ways. And it's not about getting a 20 goal a season player. And, when I look at Sané, for example, the reason that I think he carries so much gravity is I don't think that he's somebody that's going to score you 25, 30 goals a season. But he's somebody that in those key moments, you sit there and say he's going to get you and win you the match in some way or the other. And, look, I've got Saka that's in that boat. And other than that, I struggle. I think Martinelli has the potential to, if we play him to that level. But again, potential. Like, I'm ready to recruit somebody that has the gravity now, not in the future, not in the prospect. Stop talking to me about Benjamin Sesko, who I believe, by the way, is a brilliant talent, but we need it now. And so I hope that's what the club sees.
Yeah. And I think you're right in that it might have to be we go and prize someone away from a Bayern or a City, or we go and slap down 90 million for a Sané and say, look, we're here to play. We're taking your big boys. So yeah, it's a huge concern. Nick Campbell, thank you so much for your contribution. We entered the season saying getting to quarterfinal was the goal. We did that. It's not a bad showing this season, all things considered. Yeah. Bab, sorry to drag you away from your watching, but any thoughts on that?
To watch along. No, listen. I think a lot of tonight is going to be anger and disappointment, and rightly so because of the performance itself. But with the bigger picture, we're only being seen in a month or two's time, and a lot can change the weekend. If City get knocked out right now, or they lose a game on the weekend, obviously they've got the FA Cup where we got a chance to go back top. A lot can change, like it has in this week. Where prior to this week, we're fighting for a tie, we're top of the league, we're in the Champions League quarterfinals, tie basically 0-0, and now we're out. So I think now it's about looking to the future, because that's all you can do. You can't look to the past anymore because you can't change it.
Wow, philosopher Bhavs. There you go. No, look, obviously in the moment we're doing an instant reaction, so I'm annoyed and frustrated. But if we're really trying to analyze the season, say again.
Modric just missed.
There you go. Live updates. Obviously we're not trying to analyze the whole season here. We're analyzing this evening and seeing how we feel. When we come to analyzing, what we do moving forward. Yeah, look, I think I said a good showing in the Champions League, which I think is, probably just about falls under a good showing in the Champions League. It wasn't an amazing showing, but probably just about good enough in the Champions League.
I think it's very good. Look, I do think it's emotional. I think we think that we could have gone through, and I think with the injuries, we are sitting there saying Arsenal should have gone through. But generally speaking, if I did take my temperature in the summer, it was definitely a team that I felt like, get to the corners, it's very good. You've done very well for yourself. And beyond that, difficult.
I don't. Obviously, I massively respect your opinion. I don't think
awful penalty. Bernardo was just trying to dink down the middle, and his keeper just caught it.
I think I can't say losing the way we did is very good. I think it's a good showing the Champions League, and I'm glad we had these experiences, and I'm glad we've gone through here and had what we had. When we look back, I think we can take a lot out of it and hold our head high and say we had a good first showing back in the Champions League. We're going to be back there again, no problem. It will kind of depend how the season finishes, but yeah, we'll have to see how we feel when we get there. Thank you all for being here. Appreciate it. We'll be back for a Patreon pod. George and Baz will be back for a Patreon pod and YouTube members pod. Sorry, tomorrow, and I think we'll be out on Friday. Really appreciate you guys being here. We'll have a full pod out on Monday. Check in on the instant reaction on Saturday after the Wolves game and Green Shark. I completely agree. Arteta should watch the instant reaction for post-match clarity. And not any other kind of post clarity. Right. Lads, pleasure as always. And thank you very much. I really appreciate it. Make sure you like, subscribe, and peace.
Peace.